Hello, this is Mr. Kashmir. Welcome to the Innovative Literacy Lecture video on making an argument. So, within the context of this video about making an argument, we're going to look at two different points. The first point we're going to look at is how do you decipher an author's argument? In other words, how do you break down the argument that an author is making? And then the second point is how do you make your own argument effectively? So up first, how do you decipher an author's argument? I'm going to keep this brief because this is actually something I've talked about indirectly before. But essentially, when you're reading something written by somebody else, the number one thing you want to look for is their thesis. And that is to say, you want to look for their mission statement. And oftentimes it'll say very directly, this is what I'm going to argue. Okay? So you're looking for where in the text, it's usually in the first paragraph or on the first page, does the author explain where they are going, what argument they are making. So for example, in the global warming article, the author plainly states on the very first page, I am going to show you, using 3 numbers, the terrifying new math behind how serious global warming has become. Right? Or in the Atlantic article, Why Women Still Can't Have It All, the author Anne-Marie Slaughter specifically states essentially that women are in a position where the way that the society is set up right now, they can't have a strong work-life balance, but here's how to fix it. So what you need to do in order to decipher an author's argument is first you need to see exactly what is it that they're arguing. That's the question you're asking yourself. What is it that they're arguing? And you will find the answer to that in their thesis statement, which you should mark in big, bold highlighter or underline and label it as the thesis and maybe even restate it in your own words. From there, you're just looking for their supports. So in the Rolling Stone article, he said, I'm going to show you how bad global warming is using 3 numbers. And then he used a heading for each section, and he said, here's the first number. And then he explained the first number. Then he said, here's the second number, and he explained the second number, etc. So use the structure the author creates because they're going to structure in a way to make it easier for you to understand their argument. So number 1, what is it that they're arguing? And number 2, what are their supports for their argument? So I claim X, and my support for X is A, and another support is B, and another support is C. And use the structure, the headings, the way they've lumped things together, the paragraphs. Use their structure to help you understand their argument. So the second part is how do you make your own argument? You do it the same way an author does. Okay? So this applies to a group discussion when you're making an argument about what you believe the author is saying or whether you believe the author is right. This also applies to your writing. When I have you start doing essays on what you've been writing, and indeed whenever you do an essay ever for the rest of your life, you're going to do it the same way. This also applies to conversations that you have. A good argument is made the same way, whether it's you arguing with your parents or you writing an essay or you making an argument about a text. When I say argument, it doesn't necessarily have to be argumentative, right? It doesn't necessarily have to be a fight. It simply means you're staking out a position and explaining why you think you're right. So in order to make a good argument, you need a thesis, just like an author. You need to state clearly where you stand and what it is that you are going to argue. I should be hearing thesis statements coming out in group conversation, and I should be seeing them in your writing. So if I ask you to take a stand on whether or not you agree with Anne-Marie Slaughter's article and whether or not you agree with her claims about women in the workplace, you need to start by answering me whether or not you agree, and specifically stating your thesis. From there, you need to come up with supports. Generally speaking, if you're responding to an article, your supports have to be direct citations from the article. I think this thing because of this thing she says, and then you quote her, and this thing she says, and then you quote her, and this thing she says, and then you quote her. Right? So you've got your thesis, and you've got your supports, and you want to use structure the same way that authors use structure, right? So you want to say, I believe blank because of this thing, and because of this thing, and because of this thing. That's it. If you can do this effectively, you're going to be golden. You're going to be golden in your writing. You're going to be golden in your group discussion. You're going to be golden in a lot of the conversations that you have with people throughout your life. And you're going to be set up well to maybe work in a courtroom or have some other sort of high-paying job like the job of a lawyer. So, to sum it up, arguments are just a thesis with supports. I'm going to argue this. Now here's my backup. Boom, boom, boom. Structure it well. That's how simple it is. I'm not going to put any examples in this video because we have been using examples throughout the last few weeks. I just wanted to make this point and this thinking crystal clear for you.